Shalom. Last week's parasha was Vayeshev, and last week we saw that Jacob, Yaakov, he wrestled with God, and God gave him a new name, Israel. We also saw that he was coming to have this meeting with his brother from whom he had been estranged all those years, and he was filled with fear because we know that at one point his brother Esav, wanted to kill him, but God brought these two brothers together and he brought reconciliation, and he did it before their father died. And we saw that last week also. Isaac, he was gathered to his people. And that brings us to this week's portion, Vayeshev. Of course, I love every portion, but Yosef is just one of my favorite characters in the Bible. And this week we start the story of Joseph. So, this portion is Genesis 37:1 through 40:23, and the Haftarah is Amos 2:6 through 3:2, I think it is, and the New Covenant portion is Acts 7:9 through 16. So we start off with, right there, I want to start in chapter 37 of Genesis and verse 2. Yosef, when he was 17 years of age, was pasturing the flock with his brothers while he was still a youth, along with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Yosef brought back a bad report about them to their father. Now Israel loved Yosef more than all his sons because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a vari-colored tunic. Just a word that, as parents, because we saw the same thing that happened with Isaac and Rebekah, and how Isaac loved Esav and Rebekah loved Yaakov, and how we need to just guard our hearts and ask God to help us as parents to love all of our children freely and the same, that one does not feel more favored than another. But in this case, Yosef was the favorite because he was the son of his favorite wife, Rachel. And so going right back where we were, in verse 4, his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, and so they hated him, and they could not speak to him on friendly terms. Then Yosef had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Please listen to this dream which I have had, for behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf rose up and also stood erect, and behold, your sheaves gathered around and bowed down to my sheaf." And then his brothers said to him, "Are you actually going to reign over us? Or are you really going to rule over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and his words. Going on in verse 9, now he had still another dream and related it to his brothers, and he said, "Lo, I have had still another dream. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down to me." I'll just take a moment too to say that this verse, we see this referenced in Revelation chapter 12 in verses 1 and 2. And that gives us a clue to who that woman is in Revelation, because we see it here. In verse 10, he says, he related this dream to his father and his brothers, and his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream you have had? Shall I and your mother and your brothers actually come to bow ourselves down before you to the ground?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept these sayings in mind. Well, it came about that the brothers went out with the sheep, and Yaakov, the father, said to Joseph, "Listen, go and check on your brothers. See how they're doing." And then in chapter 37 of Genesis, in verse 18, it says, when they saw him from a distance, the brothers, when they saw Joseph, and before he came close to them, they plotted against him to put him to death. They said to one another, Here comes this dreamer. Now then, come, let's kill him and throw him into one of the pits, and we will say a wild beast devoured him. Then let us see what will become of his dreams. I just want to break in there, right there, to say that here were his 11 brothers, and they say, let's kill him, and really, we'll kill all those dreams that he had. But I want to say here too, that the dreams that Joseph had, these were from the Lord about his future and the future of his people Israel, and that no man can kill a dream or a vision that is from God, because it is from God and God will uphold it. As we go on, we see what they did to, what happened to him. So in verse 19, they say, here comes this dreamer, let's kill him. And in verse 21, but Reuben heard this, and he rescued him out of their hands, and he said, let us not take his life. Reuben further said to them, shed no blood. Throw him into this pit that is in the wilderness, but do not lay hands on him, that he might rescue him out of their hands to restore him to his father. So it came about when Joseph reached his brothers that they stripped Joseph of his tunic, the varied colored tunic that was on him, and they took him and threw him into the pit. Now the pit was empty without any water. And then they sat down to eat a meal. Oh my goodness, there's so much in that portion. Here they have treated their brother with such contempt, such hardness of heart. And what do they do after that? Sit down to eat a meal. Oh my goodness. God had so much work left to do in these boys. But another question for me is, why was this so important to Reuben? Reuben especially stepped in to save his brother at this point. And why was that? And as we go through this story of Joseph, it's really important to pay attention to the names of the different boys, that we get a fuller picture of what was really going on here. I myself, personal opinion, wonder if Reuben was still trying to win back his father's love and approval, because you remember what Reuben had done. He had slept with Bilhah, which was his father's wife. And I have often wondered, was he just trying to make it up to his father? Also, the issue that Reuben was the firstborn. And we know that it's still to this day, firstborns often feel very responsible for the family. So as we go on, we saw the boys sitting down to eat after they had done this, but then they lift up their eyes and hear these Ishmaelites coming. And in verse 26, Judah said to his brothers, what profit is it for us to kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. For he is our brother, our own flesh, and his brothers listen to him. So we've got 2 brothers out of 12 right now, which is Reuben and Judah. And both of these have stepped in that he would not be killed and that there would not be any shedding of blood. So when we look at verse 29, They sold Joseph to these Ishmaelites, but evidently Reuben wasn't there when that happened, because in verse 29 it says, Reuben returned to the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit. So he tore his garments. He returned to his brothers and he said, the boy is not there. And as for me, where am I to go? You hear the cry of a firstborn over one of his siblings saying, if this boy is dead, what is going to happen with the rest of my life? The guilt he would be feeling and the responsibility for his brothers. And in verse 31 of chapter 37, it says, so they took Joseph's tunic and they slaughtered a male goat and dipped the tunic in the blood, and they sent the varicolored tunic and brought it to their father, and they said, we have found this. Please examine it to see whether it is your son's tunic or not. And then he examined it and he said, it is my son's tunic. A wild beast has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces. And then Jacob's heart was broken over this son whom he loved so much. And he said, surely I will go down to Sheol in mourning for my son. And so his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, Pharaoh's officer and the captain of the bodyguard. Now, at this point, we go into chapter 38, which I'm not going to read, but just to say that this is the story of Judah and Tamar, his daughter-in-law. And you can read this for yourself to find out all that happened, because it is a story. Tamar ended up becoming pregnant by her father-in-law, Judah, and bore him 2 boys herself. And one was named Peretz, and the other was named Zerach. We get into Genesis 39, and we know that Joseph was sold into the house of Potiphar, who was an Egyptian official. And look what it says in Genesis 39, verse 2. And this would be the one verse that I really would like to emphasize today, and that you hold in your heart. The Lord was with Joseph. And we see this phrase, or something like it, very many times throughout the story of Joseph. So the Lord was with Joseph, so he became a successful man. In verse 3, now his master, meaning Potiphar, saw that the Lord was with him, and how the Lord caused all that he did to prosper in his hand. And so Joseph found favor in his sight and became his personal servant. And he made him overseer of his house, and all that he owned he put in his charge. It came about that from that time he made him overseer in his house and over all that he owned. The Lord blessed the Egyptian's house on account of Joseph. Thus the Lord's blessing was upon all that he owned in the house and in the field. So he left everything he owned in Joseph's charge, and with him there he did not concern himself with anything except with the food he ate. So Joseph was such a good servant, such a good worker. He's like Potiphar's dream come true, because Potiphar knows he can trust this man. He knows that the blessing of the Lord is upon Joseph, and the blessing of the Lord is upon his own house as long as Joseph is in charge. So Potiphar is totally happy and relaxed, knowing that he has got a good man in charge of his household. Now, the next verse, in the middle of verse 6 of chapter 39, it says, now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance. So we know what happens next. Now, it doesn't say that Potiphar's wife was beautiful, but I would think that she is, because evidently it was a real temptation. It was the enemy putting temptation in front of Joseph. And day after day, she would come to Joseph and she would say to him, come and lie with me. And day after day, he was saying no, and he was getting out of it. But then one day she comes in when he's alone there, and in verse 12 of chapter 39, she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and went outside. And there again, what a beautiful picture God is giving us about what to do with temptation. Just flee from it. As soon as we see it, run away from it. Of course, Potiphar's wife went to her husband and she said, look, this man tried to abuse me. Of course, she was lying. But what is the husband to do? So he got so angry and he threw Joseph in jail. So in chapter 39, verse 20, it says, Joseph's master took him and put him into the jail, the place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in jail. But the Lord was with Joseph and extended kindness to him and gave him favor in the sight of the chief jailer. The chief jailer committed to Joseph's charge all the prisoners who were in the jail, so that whatever was done there, he was responsible for it. The chief jailer did not supervise anything under Joseph's charge, because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made to prosper. So God took Joseph out of that pit, puts him in Potiphar's house as Potiphar's servant. Everything starts to prosper because the Lord is with Joseph. He gets now thrown into jail. And once again, when he is put in charge, everything prospers because the Lord is with him. Now, we get into chapter 40, and it says, it came about after these things that the cupbearer and the baker for the king of Egypt offended their Lord. So he throws those two in jail, and those two both had dreams. And so in verse 9, the chief cupbearer told his dream to Joseph and said to him, in my dream, behold, there was a vine in front of me, and on the vine there were 3 branches. And as it was budding, its blossoms came out, and its clusters produced ripe grapes. Now Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. Then Joseph said to him, this is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 more days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office. And you will put Pharaoh's cup into his hand according to your former custom when you were his cupbearer. Only keep in mind, when it goes well with you, and please do me a kindness by mentioning me to Pharaoh and get me out of this house. For I was in fact kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing that they should have put me into the dungeon. So then the chief baker sees that the cupbearer got a good report from his dream. And so the chief baker says, please interpret my dream too. And so in verse 19, it says, this is what Joseph says to him, or in 18, verse 18, this is the interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 more days, Pharaoh will lift up your head from you, and you will hang on a tree, and the birds will eat your flesh off of you. Thus it came about on the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast for all of his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and the head of the chief baker among his servants. He restored the chief cupbearer to his office, and he put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker just as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. But according to everything that we have read lately with Noah, and we saw it also, I believe it was with Rachel, it said the Lord remembered them. The Lord is going to remember Joseph. And I just want to end with the new covenant portion, which is in Acts chapter 7, verse 9. The patriarchs became jealous of Joseph, and they sold him into Egypt. Yet God was with him. And once again, there is that phrase. And God rescued him from all his afflictions and granted him favor and wisdom in the sight of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And he made him governor over Egypt and all his household. And so just to encourage you with those words, and God was with him. When God is with us, it's okay. If he's with us, then we can be a servant. If God is with us, we can be in the dungeon. We can be in whatever place the Lord places us. And it will be just like Paul said, Shaul, he said, I have learned to be content in every circumstance. And that reason was because the Lord was with Paul as well. So may the Lord be with you today. I bless you in the name of the Lord. Have a great day. Shalom.